Hari Om. Welcome you all to the second part of the fourth module in the information security course. In our previous video, we talked about what is public key crypto system, and we also discussed what are the applications of public key crypto system. In this video, we will be talking about the requirements for public key crypto system and the public key cryptanalysis. So before we start with the requirements for public key cryptography, we know that the public key crypto system that can be used for confidentiality, and we discussed how it can be used for the confidentiality. If it is for the confidentiality, the receiver will be generating the public and private keys, and the public key of the receiver will be used for encryption by the sender, and the encrypted message will be given to the receiver. The receiver will decrypt the message using his private key. The public key crypto system can also be used for authentication. Here, if it is for authentication, it is generally for the digital signature, and the sender, who is nothing but the signer, will generate the public and private key pairs. He will be encrypting the message with the private key, and then the message and the signature will be sent to the receiver. The receiver will be decrypting the message or the signature using the public key. This is how the authentication process is done in the public key crypto system. Apart from that, the public key crypto system can be used for both confidentiality and authentication. If so, the encryption and decryption will be done two times, one with the sender's private and public key pairs, and the other with the receiver's public and private key pairs. So you can observe here the sender's key pair. This is the sender's key pair will be used for these two encryption and decryption process, and the receiver's key pair will be used for these two encryption and decryption process. So here, since we are using the sender's private key, this becomes the authentication process. This encryption and this decryption is for the authentication process, and this encryption and decryption where we use the receiver's key pair is for the secrecy, or you call it as confidentiality. Now, all these crypto systems, whether you are going to use it for the confidentiality, authentication, or both, all these crypto systems depend on cryptographic algorithms, and these cryptographic algorithms are based on two related keys. We have already discussed it must be related keys. The private and public key pair will be used. So the other key, whichever key you are going to use for the decryption, must be a related key. So if this is the condition, Diffie and Hellman, they lay out 6 different conditions that such algorithms must fulfill. Let us see what are these conditions are. The first condition is it is computationally easy for a receiver to generate a pair, public and private key. So whoever wants to generate a pair of keys, it must be computationally easy for them to generate a public and a private key. This must be the first condition for the algorithm, right? You must easily generate a pair of keys. And the second condition is it is computationally easy for a sender knowing the public key and the message M to be encrypted to generate the corresponding ciphertext, right? So this process must also be computationally easy for the sender. right? So if the sender knows what is the public key and what is the message to be encrypted, he must have an encryption algorithm which is mathematically easy and mathematically or computationally easy for him to generate the ciphertext. This is the second condition. So the first condition says it must be easy to generate a pair of keys, and the second condition says it must be computationally easy to generate the ciphertext with the public key and the message. And the third condition is it is computationally easy for the receiver, right, because he is the one who is going to decrypt the message. So there also it must be computationally easy. So it must be computationally easy for the receiver to decrypt the resulting ciphertext, right, because he will be receiving only the ciphertext. So this ciphertext must be decrypted easily with the private key to recover the original message. So this process, so decryption with the private key and the ciphertext will be generating the original message. So this process should also be computationally easy. That is the third condition. And the fourth condition is very important. It is computationally infeasible for an adversary, for an attacker, knowing the public key to determine the private key, right? So this is very important. Since the public key is exposed to everyone, it must be computationally infeasible. This point to be noted. So even though the public key is known to anyone, he or she cannot determine the private key. That kind of process must be there, or that kind of pair of keys must be generated. So the condition 4 says it is computationally infeasible for an adversary knowing the public key to determine the private key. So if the adversary knows the public key, he cannot generate the private key. That kind of computational or mathematical formula or function is to be used in the cryptographic algorithm. And the fifth condition is again, it is computationally infeasible for an adversary knowing the public key and the ciphertext to recover the original message. So if the adversary gets both the public key and the ciphertext, he must not be able to recover the original message. He must not be able to recover the original message. So that kind of mathematical function is to be used in the cryptographic algorithm, right? So that even anybody gets the public key and the ciphertext, he should not be able to recover the original message. Then the condition 6 one says it is not necessary for all the public key applications, but some applications have this particular condition. The two keys can be applied in either order, right? So we can add the sixth requirement, although it is useful, is not necessary for all the public key applications. So if you want to have two keys to be applied, it can be applied in either order. You can see here, the public key is used first, the private key is used first, then the public key is used, and here the public key is used and then the private key is used. So in whichever order you are going to use this public and private keys, it must give you the same result, right? So these are the 6 different conditions any cryptographic algorithm should possess to call it as a public key crypto system. So the first one says it must be easy to generate a pair of keys. Then the second one says, see, why we call it as a pair of key? Because it must be related keys. That is the condition we had already discussed in our public key crypto system. So if you have a public key, then a related private key must be generated. So the key generation must be easy. That is what the condition 1 is. And the condition 2 says the encryption must be easy, right? You must have a easy function for encrypting the message with the public key and the message. Then condition 3 says the decryption must be easy. So if you have the private key, then with the ciphertext you must be easily decrypting the original ciphertext to get the original message. And the condition 4 says if the public key is known, the adversary cannot generate the private key, cannot determine the private key. So it must be infeasible here. Then the fifth condition says if you have both the public key and the ciphertext, it must not be able to generate the original message, right? So even though you have the ciphertext and the public key, the original message should not be recovered, because original message can be recovered only with the private key. Then the sixth requirement says the two keys can be applied in either order, right? So these are the 6 different conditions any cryptographic algorithm must possess to call it as a public key crypto system. Okay. Now these are the different algorithms that follow these conditions. All these 6 conditions are followed or implemented in these 4 algorithms: RSA, elliptic curve, cryptography, Diffie-Hellman algorithm and DSS. Okay. So in our syllabus we are going to cover only the RSA algorithm. But the point to be noted here is these conditions boil down to the need for a trapdoor one-way function. So if I want to have all these 6 different conditions to be implemented in any of the cryptographic algorithm, the algorithm must use a function called as trapdoor one-way function. So if you have a trapdoor one-way function in your algorithm, then obviously it can follow all these 6 different conditions. Okay. If so, the question is now, what do you mean by a one-way function and what do you mean by a trapdoor one-way function? Okay. Let us see what is a one-way function. The one-way function is one that maps a domain into a range such that every function value has a unique inverse with the condition that the calculation of the function is easy, whereas the calculation of the inverse is infeasible. This is what you call as one-way function. I repeat, a one-way function is the one that maps a domain into a range such that every function value has a unique inverse, right? So whatever mathematical function you take, all these mathematical functions will have an inverse also, right? But the one-way function is the one if the calculation of the function is easy, the calculation of the inverse is going to be very difficult, or sometimes it is infeasible. If any function is like this, what is the condition for that function? The calculation of the function is very easy, but if you try to calculate the inverse of that particular function, then it is very difficult or infeasible. Then these kind of functions are called as one-way function, right? So if you have a function f, then f of x is very easy, but f inverse of y, f inverse of y will give you x actually, right? It has to give you x. If f of x is equal to y, then the inverse function of y will give you x, right? So that is our condition here. But in this condition, the calculation of the function is very easy, but the calculation of the inverse, f inverse of y, is infeasible. Then these kind of functions are called as one-way function. Now, what do you mean by trapdoor function, right? Again, these 2 points are to be noted here. I said it must be easy and infeasible. So let us see what do you mean by easy and what do you mean by infeasible. Easy means it is defined to mean a problem that can be solved in a polynomial time as a function of the input length, right? So if the length of the input is just n bits, then the team to compute the function is proportional to n power a. It is not na, please make a note of it. It is n power a, where a is a fixed constant. Let me correct it now itself. It is n power a. Yeah. So, if the length of the input is just n bits, then the theme to compute the function is proportional to n power a, where a is a fixed constant, and these algorithms are said to belong to a class called as P class. That means it can be calculated or it can be solved in polynomial time. So, if this function can be solved in polynomial time, then I can call it as easy function. What do you mean by infeasible then? We can say a problem is infeasible if the effort to solve it grows faster than polynomial time as a function of input size. So, you cannot solve it with the polynomial time. Right. So, if the length of the input is n bits and the time to compute the function is proportional to 2 power n, the problem is considered to be infeasible. So, the point to be noted here is this calculation is coming under the polynomial time, and here it is not coming under the polynomial time. So, that is what you mean by infeasible and easy. Okay. Now, what do you mean by a trapdoor function? So, a trapdoor function is nothing but a function that is easy to compute in one direction yet difficult to compute in the opposite direction, right? So, you can calculate the value of y using f of x, but the inverse is very difficult, right? The inverse is very difficult. You can observe here, this is the input value x. I am going to calculate f of x. Calculation of f of x is very easy. Okay. But the reverse, the inverse is very difficult. Difficult to compute in the opposite direction. But even though it is very difficult to compute in the opposite direction, if the t value is given, a special information is given, or an additional information is given, then this becomes very easy. This kind of function is what you call as trapdoor one-way function, right? So, this t value is the trap value. So, this trapdoor value or the additional information if you get, you can easily get the original value, right? So, x is equal to, y is equal to f of x, right? This is the x value, input value, and it can be easily calculated with f of x function. Okay, fine. And the reverse is f dash of y. F dash of y is very, very difficult. But for this f dash of y, if you are going to give an additional information, then this can be calculated easily. This kind of function is what you call as trapdoor function. Okay. So, one-way function says this must be easy and this must be infeasible, right? Calculation of the function is easy, but the calculation of the inverse is infeasible. This is what you call as one-way function. Okay, fine. Now, the trapdoor function is the one, it is easy to compute in one direction. So, this direction is very easy, but it is difficult to compute in the opposite direction. So, if you use the inverse process is very difficult. But if you have an additional information, the inverse process become very easy. Finding its inverse is very easy, right? So, this kind of function is what you call as trapdoor function. I read it again. A trapdoor function is a function that is easy to compute in one direction but difficult to compute in the opposite direction, which you call as the inverse, right? So, finding inverse is very difficult. But finding inverse becomes easy when if you give a special information called as trapdoor, something like this. If you get, see, something like the private key, if you get the private key, obviously you can easily decrypt the message, yes or no, right? So this private key is what you call as the additional information, or what you call as the trapdoor. So the trapdoor functions are widely used in the cryptography. So a trapdoor one-way function, right? So we had seen what is one-way function. We had seen what is a trapdoor function. Now the question is, what do you mean by trapdoor one-way function? Because we had seen if all the 6 conditions are to be used in a cryptographic algorithm, then the algorithm must possess a property called as, must possess a function of a property called as trapdoor one-way function. So this function is easy to calculate in one direction and it is infeasible to calculate in the other direction unless certain additional information is known. So if this additional information is known, you can calculate it in the other direction. Other direction calculation is also easy, but it is infeasible if the additional information is not known. So with the additional information, the inverse can be calculated in polynomial time. If so, I can call it as a trapdoor one-way function. So this trapdoor one-way function is a family of invertible functions fk, such that fk of x is easy, right? So k and x are known here. K and x are known here. Then fk of x, this is the function, right? Direct function. And if k and y are known, the inverse is also easy. So this k is what you call as additional information. So if you get the additional information, then the inverse can be calculated easily, right? That is what you call as trapdoor one-way function. Now here in this case, if you have a function fk of x, k is a known value and x is a known value. So you can easily calculate this function. This is calculated in one direction. Now in the reverse direction, in the inverse direction, if you know this k and y value, then it is easy. But if you know y value alone without the k value, right? So y is known here but k is not known, then this function, inverse function, becomes very, very difficult or infeasible. So this cannot be determined in the polynomial time. So this kind of function is what you call as one-way function, which has a trapdoor. So we can call it as a trapdoor one-way function, right? So you can observe here, this is easy because k value and x value is known. Inverse is also easy because k and y value is known. But if the y value is known but the k value is not known, then the inverse becomes very difficult or infeasible. These kind of functions are called as trapdoor one-way function, right? So in any cryptographic algorithm, if the algorithm need to be a public key crypto system, then the algorithm must possess a function called as trapdoor one-way function. So all this RSA, DSS, Diffie-Hellman, all these algorithms has this function which you call as the trapdoor one-way function. Okay. So thus the development of practical public key scheme depends on discovery of a suitable trapdoor one-way function. So that is why in our RSA algorithm we have this prime number product and the phi of n value, finding E and D values. All these things are based on this trapdoor one-way function. Okay. So The trapdoor one-way function is one of the very important requirements of a public key cryptography. Okay. Next, very briefly, let us talk about the public key cryptanalysis. So we are going to see only the three kinds of attacks here. The first one, it says the public key encryption scheme is vulnerable to brute force attack. So if the key size is very small, obviously it is vulnerable to brute force attack. So what is the countermeasure? Obviously we need to use larger keys, and the key size must be large enough to make the brute force attack impractical, but small enough for practical encryption and decryption. So this point is to be observed here. The public key cryptography is vulnerable to brute force attack. We know that, okay? When it is vulnerable to brute force attack? If the key size is very small. But what is the solution for that? We have to make the key size larger. But if you make the key size larger, then the encryption and decryption process will be very slow. So this is the point to be noted here. If I want to secure my cryptographic system, I need to use larger key. But if you use larger key, then the encryption and decryption process will be very slow. Right? So because of this contradictory concept, the public key encryption is used in the key management and in the digital signature application. So it is not so widely used for the confidentiality. Right? It is used only for the key management and the signature applications. Okay. So this is one of the attacks that may happen on the public key encryption. And another form of attack, that is to find some way to compute the private key given the public key. But this is not yet achieved because it has not been mathematically proven that this form of attack is infeasible for a particular public key algorithm, right? Because most of the public key algorithms are using the trapdoor one-way function, so it becomes very difficult for the attacker or the adversary to find the private key if the public key is given. And the third kind of attack is what you call as probable message attack. So the probable message attack is also done using the brute force attack. Here what happens? The message size is small. In the direct brute force attack we had seen the key size is small. If the key size is very small, obviously it is vulnerable to the brute force attack. So the countermeasure is we need to use a larger key. But here the message is, even though you are using an optimum size key, you are not using a very large key, you are not using very small key, that is optimum, fine. But even though the key size is optimum, imagine your message size is very small. You have only 28 bits message, or you want to send only a 56 bits message, like that. In that case, the attack will be reduced to the brute force attack. So no matter how large the key size of the public key scheme is, if your message size is small, then it is vulnerable to the brute force attack. So what you have to do, obviously, to prevent from this attack, random bits will be added to the simple message. So if you are sending a very simple and small messages, you can add some bits. So some kind of 0 padding or 1 padding, or anywhere in the 8th bit, 8th bit or 16th bit kind of information can be modified. So some random bits can be added or padded into the simple message. Then the message can be encrypted, which will save from the possible message attack, right? So the three types of attacks that may happen in the public key crypto system is brute force attack. So the solution here is using a larger key. But if you use larger key, the problem is encryption and decryption becomes very slow. So you must have a optimum size key. That is why the public key crypto system is used only for the key management or for the digital signature application. And the second attack is, if the public key is given, the private key can be determined, but it is very difficult. Mathematically, it is not yet proved that we can find out the private key if the public key is given, because all these cryptographic algorithms will make use of what function called? It is a trapdoor one-way function. So even though you get the public key, it is very difficult for you to calculate the private key. This is the second kind of attack. And the third attack is what you call as possible message attack. So here the problem is, if your message, not the key, if your message is very small, then it is also exposed to the brute force attack. So to overcome this difficulty, what we have to do, we need to increase the size of the message. How do you increase the size of the message? You just have some random bits padded to the original message. So that will save the message from the brute force attack, right? So this is a very brief information about what kind of cryptanalysis happens on the public key crypto system, right? So in this video, we just talked about what is the requirement for public key crypto system, what is cryptanalysis of public key crypto system. So the requirement, as we had seen, since we have 6 different conditions that can be laid on the public key crypto system, the public key crypto system algorithms must have a function called as trapdoor one-way function. That is the very minimum requirement for the public key crypto system, right? Then in the cryptanalysis, the public key crypto system is exposed to the brute force attack if the key size is small. The same way, even if the message is very small, it is exposed to the brute force attack, right? Apart from that, if the public key is given, we can have some kind of mathematical calculation for the private key, but till date, the mathematically it is proven that it is very difficult to find the function to determine the private key once the public key is given, right? So that's it about the requirement for public key crypto system and cryptanalysis. We'll be talking about the RSA algorithm in our upcoming video. Thank you.